This video we talked about first trend on artificial intelligence involvement on HR analytics and HR management. And today let's discuss our second trend from our group work is that we feel like we actually find out that there's a decrease in air ticket prices amid 1 to 2 years after the COVID pandemic. So during the pandemic and after the pandemic. Although this trend looks really easy, but we are not only to just discuss about the airplane ticket price because that's pretty easy, straightforward that countries are putting stricter measures. They're kind of trying to control the situation right now. So definitely they don't want too many people to travel. Of course, they're blocking travel. They're blocking this immigration as well. So yeah, this is our trend. But the video today, this particular video right here, actually we want to use this trend to lead us into a discussion on localism that I want to go further in this video. Okay, so first paragraph just introduced about this trend. So countries putting stricter measures. International relations are undergoing freezing period right now because countries actually now start to hate each other due to this problem, and due to this virus economics are affected. So they're thinking about the blocking some trade. They're kind of focusing on the global market more. They're focusing on the local market more than the global market. And so now international relations are freezed, while the coronavirus has created huge economic and societal effects. This means many businesses not working well, businesses in the world suffering problems, and now global trade is at stake. This trend may lead to Professor Sargent's research. So Professor Sargent is a lecturer in Walden schools in terms of industrial relations and human resources, and her research stream is actually localism. So localism is a philosophy. It's actually a political philosophy, but I know it's actually an economic philosophy or ideology that it says no, the country should not focus on the global market. It should focus on the global economy, global exchange of goods and services. And so we are kind of less affected by global situations, and therefore in some cases like the pandemic, we're able to actually boost our economic growth and society welfare, standard of living, our earnings by establishing these cycles of localism, exchange of goods in our market. So not only we see lower airplane ticket prices, but we also see stagnation period of global trade and international initiatives. So international programs are kind of stagnated, and we know these programs are running slowly right now. Kind of a stagnation period without some race. So so now the period is not really optimistic right now due to this kind of the president tried to leave more opportunities for American citizens. And the second is actually political conflict because Donald Trump believes the COVID is actually a China virus, it's a Chinese virus. So for certain countries they have some racist discriminations towards this particular race. So that's why we also see a decreased amount of students allowed to study in the States. Okay, and if we continue to talk about, and our second continue to talk about is actually the decrease for migration. I think everybody knows this. Actually, it's a trend emerged from this COVID is that in the next 2 to 3 years, I predict at least, I know immigration will be possible. Immigration will be possible because some countries are already fixing this virus situation. But due to the forecasted presence of the virus and due to some issues, economic issues especially, that is unleashed and unrestrained by the virus after it's even eliminated. After even the virus is being eliminated, it still takes time for the economy to recover. This means the immigration will be strictly controlled both due to the forecasted presence of the virus and stricter immigration policies, along with the force of economic indicators like gross domestic product, gross national income, purchasing power, standards of living, income, and employment. Yes, and after the pandemic, immigration will start again. I think there will be lighting eventually because many countries do rely on immigrants to provide these job opportunities because some of the main ways that immigration comes is we know there's political refugee and environmental refugee, but one reason is investment, right? Many people many Asians do immigrate to the United States by investment, like a few million dollars or so. Same for Canada, same for the UK, like Ireland. So they rely this investment from the immigrants. Also, immigrants do provide job opportunities if they choose to do a startup or they choose to kind of just do investment. And investment do actually provide job opportunities. So they will be lightened in the future as predicted of trend. But these 2 years, migration will be stagnated. I'm not so sure about a higher institution learning. I think you'll be fine, but United States is blocking some students, Chinese students to enter. But overall, I think you'll be okay in terms of because virus doesn't really affect the educational industry. these universities like Oxford, MIT or Harvard still going to be operating well. They're still paying people, still either learning at home, either learning through Zoom, everybody's still learning. So I think the most affected are these natural resources businesses, oil companies, hospitality businesses, restaurant beverages, and hotel businesses, and all these service sector businesses experiencing stagnations, but not so much for education institutions, especially now summer holiday. The schools basically maybe summer holiday ended. After it's ended, situation will get better, possibly. Okay. Also, the second direct impact can be observed in tourism and agriculture industries. So you feel like travel plans are cancelled. And this actually do affect many businesses that's linked to agriculture. You might argue that farmers will, our group believes that farmers are unable to harvest their crops due to decreasing demand from the restaurants wanting rice, for instance, or like veggies, even for the meat. But you can argue that supermarkets are in high demand, people stocking food. But think about this. Before the virus and after the virus, most likely people eating the same amount of food. We might be stocking, you might see the restaurant being crowded, but they're stocking more, but most people still buy how much they want to eat. They're not going to buy more than they can eat because food is perishable. So, as a whole, you might see a lot of people crowding the restaurants. You may see, crowding in the supermarket. You may see supermarket having good businesses, this thing seemingly optimistic. But that's not really the case because, think about the restaurants. Restaurants not ordering much. Many restaurants either have closed, either they have some takeaway, or the restaurants have to go bankrupt. So overall, agriculture sectors, especially if we talk about Texas, talk about Ohio, talk about Idaho, this states, Wisconsin, every state has strong firm agriculture industry, so they might be severely affected. And now we're actually moving on to localism that I hope this trend can bring us into the discussion right now is a psychological and political change that pandemic brings us will be xenophobia and xenophobia and nationalism. So by psychology, just by racism, I don't think it will go long. So we know we have these problems like xenophobia, we might have nationalism, which means people more focused on this inside this country. It may be less inclusive to this immigrants, to people of different races and ethnic backgrounds, but this is actually not the real issue. The real issue that brings nationalism and xenophobia is not some racist comment. That's only from a few people. That's not going to be prevalent to the whole society in the 21st century. So only those uneducated people, those people who actually, have bad personality, they tend to be racist. But that's only a few people, and that's unavoidable, no matter there's a pandemic or there's no pandemic. The thing it brings, the complication from this nationalism in a political point of view rather than psychological point of view is actually globalization will be weakened, because now if we don't, not about racism, but if people think about this pandemic, they feel like global markets, they actually have less opportunities, and those businesses who are having global supply chain, many of them have went bankrupt. So the problem is now localism may be merged. This means in the next 2 years the trade may be an issue, which means compared to before the pandemic, there will be a lot of drawbacks. Business may not be able to specialize and efficiently have a supply chain, because trade is important. Why do we do trade? Because different countries have different advantages, and different businesses have different advantages. So if we sell a product to each other, it's actually kind of benefiting both parties, decreasing the opportunity cost. But when we actually have localism rather than globalization, one of the problems is we may be better than last month during the pandemic compared to some worst periods of pandemic. We are making progress, but compared to before, definitely we are not as good as before. We are not getting the better deals from the trade. So localism may stabilize the economy, but it isn't a way to go in the long run. This is why many people do predict that after the COVID war, even the Walton's thing actually stated that Dr. Gary said that after the Walton War, the world will be less urban and globalized. I do agree with that, but this after is only a few years after. I think my prediction from our group is latest 2023 or latest 2022 that the globalization will emerge again and localization will gradually weaken. Why do I think so? For instance, India's secondary industry and US service industry collaborate to render benefits. Everybody knows US is not strong in manufacturing. Everybody is doing, most people are doing service sector work, and we have also emerging economies like China, India, Brazil, Pakistan. This industry is more focused on secondary industry in terms of industrial and industrialization and manufacturing. So definitely some countries specialize in primary industry, some in the secondary industry. So in the long run, it may progress economy, but when we think about the long run, you will actually add a lot of opportunity cost. And when businesses recover, when economy recover, there's huge chances for us to actually be able to afford globalization to conduct trade. Therefore, localization won't be developed into a large extent in the future, and if it did, and it actually continues like to 2030, our group's prediction is that the world is not going to work well, because then we're going to have independent economic recession, independent inflations in the different countries. So in the end, we may be gradually recovering globalization. Okay, so these are two trends our group have been thinking about, and in terms of evidence, we have few evidence to display. The first of all is the role of graph database and big data analytics. So graph transactions have been emerging. We have a lot of analytical toolings that allow us to do data integration, and also the future of AI. If we want human resources to apply AI, we need large AI businesses to actually afford the services. And we see this is actually optimistic, because many countries in the world right now are having a lot of opportunities. Many businesses in the AI industry have been flourishing. This means not only AI business can succeed, also means they can have better prices, possibly many businesses will be able to get AI technologies. AI technologies will be ubiquitous in the future. And also airline ticket prices, if you want to see, here's a graph displaying that. Yeah, okay. So this is basically our trend. So based on these two videos, hope you guys have some opinions. But it is pretty interesting that actually our working groups has to think about a lot of trends. So we have a lot of groups, we have hundreds of people joining this session. So not only we discuss about trend based on COVID, some people talk about trends on education, some people talk about automation, some people talk about retail industries, some people talk about learning, some people talk about this Amazon, there's e-commerce, and many people even talk about this leisure, entertainment trends, and trends of the society, like Miami, Florida, Wisconsin. They talk about this trend, not focus on economic, but focus on this environmental things, focus on the psychological things, lifestyle changes. So it's pretty interesting that, and I that even we may be predicting trends from different sectors, they're all linked to our STEP model that social, technological, environment, economy, and politics actually intercorrelate each other, and we have a lot of interesting things to think about in our storytelling and our still planning. Okay, so thank you for watching these two videos, and I'll see you guys in the future for more interesting discussions to come. Thank you.